Stop thinking like a worker. Workers wait for permission. Builders create direction, workers clock in. Builders cash out. This audiobook isn't about working harder, it's about never working the same again. The richest people in the world don't sell their time. They sell their systems, their results, their ownership. If you're tired of surviving paycheck to paycheck, this is your turning point. Because from this moment forward, your new job is to build. Chapter 1. The Worker Trap. You've been told your whole life to get a good job. To play it safe. To stay consistent. But here's the truth. Most people aren't safe. They're stuck. Security is the most dangerous illusion in the world. It's a cage that looks like comfort. A paycheck that feels like peace. Until you realize it's also the leash around your potential. The worker trap isn't physical. It's mental. It's not your boss keeping you small, it's your beliefs. The moment you traded your imagination for a time card, you stepped inside the cage. And the cage feels good at first. The routine feels predictable. You clock in, you clock out, and the world applauds your stability. But the applause is just the sound of a crowd that's also afraid to leave their own cage. Let's be clear. This isn't an attack on hard work. This is a wake-up call about who you're working for, what you're building, and why you stopped questioning it. Workers think in hours. Builders think in assets. That's the difference. That's the invisible line between survival and creation. When you think like a worker, your value is tied to your presence. When you think like a builder, your value is tied to what exists when you're not there. You've been trained to believe that time equals money, that if you just work harder, you'll finally get ahead. But let me ask you, how's that been working for most people? They work harder and the system just adjusts their cage. A little bigger maybe, but still locked. Because the truth is, effort alone doesn't build freedom. Vision does. Workers execute the vision of others. Builders create their own, and that's the shift. That's the mental reset that will separate your old life from your next level. You weren't born to be managed. You were born to create. Say that again. You weren't born to be managed. You were born to create. The worker trap starts early. You're told to follow the rules, to color inside the lines, to wait your turn, to not make too much noise. And the moment you question that system, they label you rebellious. They call you unrealistic. But every breakthrough, every invention, every fortune came from someone who refused to stay inside the worker's box. Builders break patterns. Workers repeat them. Look at every wealthy person, every creator, every founder. They stopped selling hours. They started building leverage. They built products, content, systems, investments, or teams that worked without them. You see, the worker asks, how can I get paid more for my time? The builder asks, how can I make my time irrelevant to the payment? That's the mindset difference that changes everything. But here's what's dangerous. The worker trap disguises itself as loyalty, as being responsible, as being realistic. How many people do you know who brag about job security, and yet deep down, they're terrified? Terrified of losing that job, terrified of starting over, terrified of finding out what they could really do if no one was giving them instructions. Security isn't security when it depends on someone else's decision. That's not safety. That's dependency. True safety comes from your ability to create, not your ability to comply. You have to stop worshiping the system that benefits from your comfort. You don't need their permission. You need a plan. You don't need approval. You need accountability. You don't need to work harder. You need to work higher. Let's get practical for a moment. How do you start escaping the worker trap? You begin by asking 3 brutal questions. What am I building that can outlast me? If your answer is nothing, then you're still in the cage. You need to create something, an asset, a brand, a system, a skill that multiplies your value. Who owns my outcome? If someone else controls whether you eat, You're not free yet. Ownership is the new security. What problem am I solving that can scale? Builders solve once, sell forever. Workers repeat the same motion every day for a fixed price. Every time you trade time for money, you're teaching the world that your time has a ceiling. But when you build something that scales, an idea, a brand, a product, your value becomes infinite. You have a choice. Stay safe or scale up. Be managed or become the manager of your destiny. That's the key. Now, don't misunderstand. There's nothing wrong with starting as a worker. In fact, almost every builder begins there. But the difference is this: builders don't stay there. They use the job as a training ground. They observe the systems, study the psychology, and learn the process. Then, they take that knowledge and build something of their own. Every builder once worked inside a system before building their own. The difference is they didn't confuse the system with safety. They used it as fuel, so stop seeing your job as your identity. Start seeing it as your apprenticeship. It's your boot camp for freedom. Use it to learn how businesses run, how leaders lead, how money moves, and then move differently. You weren't born to be managed. You were born to create. That's not a quote. That's your calling. And maybe right now you're saying, but I can't just quit. You don't have to quit it yet. You just have to shift. Shift your mindset. Shift your focus. Shift your time. Use the job to fund your dream, not to replace it. Use your free time to build something that gives you more time. Because every minute you give to a dream is 1 minute less inside the cage. This is the beginning of your reprogramming. You must stop thinking like a worker. You must start thinking like a builder. Because once your mind expands to the level of ownership, it can never shrink back to obedience. Once you see that you can build something that earns without you, you'll never want to trade time again. You don't need another raise. You need a reason. You don't need another manager. You need mastery. The worker trap will whisper, stay comfortable. But comfort is the cost of growth. And growth is the rent you pay for freedom. You weren't born to serve someone else's dream. You were born to build your own. That's the truth. That's the awakening. And that's where your new chapter begins. You've seen the trap. Now it's time to see the mindset that breaks it. You've identified the cage. Now you're going to learn how to think like the person who escapes it. You mastered awareness. Now let's talk about the mindset that builds everything that follows. Chapter 2. The Builder's Mind. Everything you build in life begins here, in your mind. Before the empire, before the money, before the freedom. It all starts as a single thought. That's why this chapter matters more than any strategy, any system, or any connection you'll ever make. Because if your mindset is small, everything you touch will shrink to fit it. But if your mindset is built to create, not just to survive, then the world becomes your construction site. Builders see opportunity everywhere, not because they're luckier, but because they've trained their mind to solve, not to serve. Workers wait for instructions. Builders write their own blueprints. That's the key. You see, most people were never taught how to think. They were taught how to follow the plan, follow the path, follow the rules, and that's why they never build anything of their own, because you can't follow and build at the same time. The builder's mind doesn't wait for permission. It looks at what exists and asks, how can I make it better? It sees a broken process and says, that's a business. It sees inefficiency and says, that's an opportunity. You have a choice every single day, to see problems or to see potential. Most people see the world through limits. Builders see the world through leverage. They don't say, it's too hard. They ask, who's done it before, and how can I do it faster? They don't say, I can't afford it. They ask, how can I create the value that pays for it? That's how builders think. That's how they win. Here's what you need to understand. Every company you admire, every brand you respect, every empire that stands tall today started in someone's mind before it ever existed in the real world. Apple, Tesla, Amazon. They all started as imagination, as blueprints no one else could see. Steve Jobs didn't start with the technology. He started with the belief that he could simplify technology so anyone could use it. That belief became an empire. Elon Musk didn't start with rockets. He started with the thought that humanity should reach beyond Earth. That thought became SpaceX. You don't need a factory to begin. You need a framework inside your mind. The real wealth is built in imagination before execution. If you can't see it in your mind, you'll never hold it in your hands. That's the law. Your mind is your first piece of real estate. Own it. But here's the problem. Most people are renting space in their own head. They let fear live there. They let doubt decorate it. They let other people's opinions collect rent. No wonder their life feels crowded. They've given away ownership of their greatest asset, their mindset. If your mind is your first piece of real estate, then your first responsibility is to protect it. You wouldn't let just anyone move into your house. So why do you let negativity move into your thoughts? Builders don't let fear take up space. They evict excuses. They renovate their mindset daily. You have to take ownership of what lives in your mind. Because the world outside you will always mirror the world inside you. Let's get real practical for a moment. If you want to start thinking like a builder, you have to train your mind to solve. Start every day with one simple question. What problem can I solve today that adds value to others? That question rewires your brain for opportunity. It forces you to stop thinking about what's missing and start focusing on what's possible. When you see a long line at a store, a worker complains. A builder thinks, that's inefficiency. That's a business idea. When you notice people frustrated online, a worker scrolls past. A builder says, that's pain. Pain means profit if I can solve it. You have to develop that reflex, the reflex to see differently. That's the muscle that separates the average from the architects. It's not about intelligence. It's about interpretation. Two people can look at the same world and see two completely different futures. The difference is the lens they use, the builder's lens or the worker's lens. And remember, you have a choice. Now listen closely. Your imagination is your most valuable currency. Not your job title, not your salary, not your experience. Every paycheck can disappear tomorrow. But the ability to imagine, to innovate, to create, that's untouchable wealth. That's what builders understand. They build wealth twice, once in their mind, then in the world. They construct their reality through repetition, vision, and execution. Every time you visualize what you want, you're laying bricks in your mental foundation. Every time you act on it, you're adding walls to your empire. You can't just dream, you must direct your dream. You have to give your imagination a job description. Don't just say, I want to be rich. Say, I want to build a system that produces wealth while I sleep. Don't just say, I want freedom. Say, I want to build ownership that pays me for the value I've created. That's the builder's mind at work. And yes, this takes discipline. It's not about being positive. It's about being productive. It's not about hoping. It's about building mental muscle. You train your mind the same way you train your body, through repetition and resistance. Every day, your mind will try to pull you back to old patterns, to the worker mindset, to thinking small, to seeing problems as punishment instead of possibility. That's when you must remind yourself. Your mind is your first piece of real estate. Own it. Guard it. Invest in it. Upgrade it. Read more. Observe more. execute more. Every time you consume wisdom instead of noise, you're remodeling your mind. Every time you take a risk, you're expanding your capacity. Every time you fail and learn, you're adding a new floor to your inner empire. That's how builders grow. So here's what I want you to do. Starting today, start journaling ideas, not complaints. Write down one opportunity you notice each day. Train your mind to look for solutions, not sympathy. You'll be shocked at how quickly your perception shifts. You'll begin to notice that everything around you, every frustration, every inefficiency, every inconvenience is a seed. And builders plant seeds, not excuses. That's how wealth begins. Not with money, with mental ownership. You have to decide what kind of thinker you'll be. Will you keep renting your thoughts to fear and conformity, or will you own the real estate of your imagination and build something on it? Because once your mind becomes the architect of your future, your life has no choice but to follow. Remember this. Before you can own property, you must own perspective. Before you can build wealth, you must build vision. Before you can lead others, you must lead your own thoughts. That's the key. That's the blueprint. Your mind is your first piece of real estate. Own it. You've built awareness in Chapter 1. Now, you've taken ownership of your greatest asset, your mind. Next, we'll go deeper into the builder's advantage, because once your mind shifts, your time must follow. You learned to think like a builder. Now let's talk about how to use your time like one. Chapter 3. Time is a tool, not a trade time. The one resource you can never get back, and the one most people still waste like it's infinite. You've been told time is money. That's a lie. Time isn't money, it's leverage. And how you use it will determine whether you stay a worker or become a builder. Workers sell their hours. Builders multiply them. That's the difference. That's the gap between surviving and scaling. If your income depends on your presence, you're still a worker. Let that line sink in, because that one sentence defines the ceiling of your life right now. Here's the harsh truth. Most people don't manage time. They trade it. They trade their life away, 1 hour at a time, for just enough money to keep them coming back next week. It's not about laziness. It's about lack of leverage. You can't escape the trap if every dollar you earn requires your body to be there. Builders understand something workers don't. You can't scale hours. But you can scale systems. That's the key. Every billionaire, every founder, every visionary, they all mastered the same principle. Time leverage. Not money leverage. Not debt leverage. Time leverage. They learned how to multiply their time by investing it into things that kept working after they stopped. Elon Musk doesn't build every rocket. Jeff Bezos doesn't pack every box. They built machines, systems, teams, automation that extend their reach while they sleep. That's the shift you must make. From doing everything to building things that do for you. If you're still chasing time, you're playing the wrong game. Builders don't chase time. They design it, let's make it practical. You have 24 hours a day. Everyone does. The difference between the rich and the broke isn't hours. It's how those hours are used. The worker asks, "How much can I make this hour?" The builder asks, "How can this hour make for me even when I'm gone?" That's the mindset difference. When a worker spends an hour, it's gone forever. When a builder spends an hour, it's invested into something that compounds. A system, a product, a person, or a process. You have a choice. Spend your time or plant your time. One creates income. The other creates freedom. You have to start treating time like equity, not currency. Equity grows when you invest it wisely. Currency disappears when you spend it carelessly. The question isn't, how can I work harder? It's, How can I make my time worth more without working harder? That's what leverage does. Leverage turns time into a tool. Think about it like this. Every tool multiplies effort. A hammer is leverage for your hand. A computer is leverage for your mind. A system is leverage for your time. That's how builders win. They use tools that multiply their presence. Now here's where people go wrong. They confuse busyness with productivity. Working all day doesn't make you a builder. It makes you a hamster on a wheel. You're moving fast, but going nowhere. Stop glorifying being busy. Start glorifying being effective. If what you're doing today won't pay you tomorrow, you're not building, you're maintaining. And maintenance doesn't make millionaires. Builders ask, what can I build once that pays me forever? Workers ask, what can I do today that pays me tonight? That's why one group escapes and the other repeats. Let's go deeper. Time leverage comes from three main multipliers: people, systems, tools. People leverage means you stop doing everything yourself. You hire, delegate, and lead. If you're the only one who can do the work, you don't have a business. You have a burden. You don't need control. You need collaboration. Train people to do what you do so you can move to higher value problems. That's not weakness. That's strategy. Next, systems leverage. Systems are habits that run without emotion. Automation, routines, repeatable processes, these are your silent employees. A system doesn't call in sick. It doesn't lose motivation. It just performs. And finally, tool leverage. Technology, AI, software, media, these multiply your reach. A YouTube video can talk to 1 million people while you sleep. A course can teach others while you rest. An automated funnel can sell while you're living. That's what builders understand. They use time once to build, so it keeps paying again and again. You have a choice. You can work for time, or you can make time work for you. That's the key. Now, let's address the resistance that's probably rising in your mind right now. You might be thinking, I don't have money for tools or people. That's fine. Start with systems. Start with habits that make your time compound. Wake up earlier. Batch your work. Automate what you can. Learn faster. Consume knowledge instead of entertainment. Leverage doesn't start with money. It starts with discipline. It's not about having resources. It's about being resourceful. That's what builders do. They start where they are, but they don't stay there. They use what they have to create what they need. Remember, if your income depends on your presence, you're still a worker. So here's your assignment. Audit your week. Track where every hour goes. Then ask one brutal question. What in this list could keep working without me? If the answer is nothing, you have no leverage yet. And that means your time is your prison. But that's not where you stay. That's where you start. Start building something that breaks the chain between effort and earning. A side project, a digital product, a service that scales, an investment that pays while you sleep. The first step is simple. Stop trading hours. Start trading ideas, systems, and assets. Because once your time stops being for sale, your freedom begins. Understand this. Builders never run out of time because they stop trying to own it. They design environments that multiply it. They create momentum that carries their effort forward. Every video you make, every product you create, every process you automate, those are time machines. They carry your effort into the future. They make your past work valuable forever. That's the builder's secret. They don't just use time. They build with time. You have a choice today to keep living hour to hour or to start creating hours that live without you, because time can be your master or your multiplier, your prison or your power, your limit or your legacy. If your income depends on your presence, you're still a worker. But the moment you build something that earns without you, you become a builder. And builders don't chase freedom. They design it. You've learned how to think like a builder. You've learned how to use time like a builder. Now it's time to learn how to systemize like one, because systems are what turn discipline into destiny. They're the bridge between vision and results. You've learned to value time. Now let's learn how to multiply it. Chapter 4. Build systems, not to-do lists. You don't need more time. You need a better system. Say it again. You don't need more time. You need a better system. Most people are drowning in lists, endless tasks, endless reminders, endless busy work. They mistake activity for achievement. They confuse motion with progress. They think checking boxes is success, but workers chase lists. Builders design systems, and that's the difference between exhaustion and expansion. A worker wakes up to a list that owns them. A builder wakes up to a system that serves them. That's the key. Systems outperform motivation. You can't rely on motivation. It's unreliable. It fades. It disappears the moment things get hard. Motivation is emotional fuel. It burns fast and leaves you empty. But systems? Systems run even when you don't feel like it. Systems don't need your permission. They execute your priorities on autopilot. You have a choice. Live by emotion or live by design. If your days are ruled by how you feel, you'll never build anything that lasts. But if your days are ruled by systems, you'll create results whether you're inspired or not. Think about it. Your body already understands systems. You don't consciously breathe, digest, or blink. Your body runs on automation. That's why it thrives. Your business, your money, your success, they need the same thing. You don't need a list to do the right things. You need a system that forces the right things to happen. Workers make daily to-do lists. Builders make systems that remove decisions. Because decisions drain energy, systems save it. You don't need more discipline. You need fewer decisions. That's the secret high performers don't tell you. Every billionaire you admire, they've built systems that protect their focus, time, and attention. They don't wake up wondering what to do next. Their systems tell them. Their systems run them forward. You can be that disciplined, not through willpower, but through design. That's the key, too. Work on the machine, not just in it. Workers work in the business. Builders work on the machine that runs the business. And that's where leverage lives. A worker says, "I'll do it myself." A builder says, "I'll build a system that does it for me." That shift from doer to designer changes everything. If you're always busy, you're probably trapped inside the machine. You're the operator, not the architect. You're maintaining, not multiplying. You're fixing fires instead of building fireproof systems. Here's the truth. Every time you repeat a task manually, you waste an opportunity to build automation. If it happens twice, systemize it. If it happens daily, automate it. If it drains energy, delegate it. That's the builder's rule. And it will free you from your own bottlenecks. You can't scale chaos. You can only scale clarity. And clarity is what systems give you. Let's make it practical. If you're a creator, your system might be a content calendar, a batch production workflow, an assistant who edits and schedules. If you're a business owner, your system might be an onboarding process, an automated payment structure, or team SOPs that remove you from operations. If you're a leader, your system might be a culture that trains itself, not one that needs constant pep talks. The point is this. Every hour spent building a system saves 10 hours later. Every system you create becomes a silent employee that never sleeps. And here's the line you must remember. You're not paid for effort. You're paid for efficiency. And efficiency comes from systems. So stop glorifying hustle. Stop worshiping busyness. Stop measuring your worth in hours. The world doesn't reward exhaustion. It rewards output. And output multiplies through systems. You don't need more hands. You need a better machine. Systems compound. To-do lists don't. A to-do list resets every morning. A system compounds every day. That's why you're tired. That's why you feel stuck. You're starting from zero each time. When you live by lists, progress dies with your willpower. When you live by systems, progress compounds with momentum. That's the secret of compound discipline. It's not about working harder. It's about designing smarter. Systems turn chaos into structure. Structure turns time into leverage. And leverage turns effort into freedom. Because freedom isn't the absence of work. It's the automation of work. You want more time? Automate your life. You want more energy? Eliminate decision fatigue. You want more results? Build processes that repeat themselves. Remember, every time you automate, you multiply your time. Every time you delegate, you buy back your hours. Every time you document, you build your future freedom. You can't scale with lists, but you can scale with systems. That's why builders don't chase urgency. They chase design. They spend 1 hour building a system that saves them 100. They think long-term. They trade effort for structure. That's how you build freedom that lasts. Your income grows when your systems grow. Your peace grows when your systems simplify. Your impact grows when your systems run without you. And here's the truth that most people don't want to hear. If your success requires your constant presence, you don't own a business, you own a job. If your peace depends on your daily effort, you don't have freedom. You have fatigue disguised as productivity. But if your systems run your success, you win twice. You gain wealth and time. You gain output and peace. You gain control and freedom because you don't need more time. You need a better system. Transition. So from this point forward, stop managing chaos. Start building clarity. Start designing your life like a system that serves your vision, not one that traps you in busyness. Because systems don't just save time, they multiply destiny. And once you understand that, you'll realize something deeper. Every system you build is a mirror of your mindset. If your systems are weak, your thinking still belongs to a worker. But if your systems are strong, you're already thinking like a builder. You're starting to move from control to leverage, from effort to efficiency, from lists to machines. You've built the foundation of order. Now it's time to build power. Because the next step isn't just about systems. It's about ownership. You've built the process. Now it's time to own the outcome. Chapter 5. Ownership over obedience. Approx. 1,050 words. You don't need a boss. You need accountability to your own vision. Let that line echo in your mind. You don't need a boss. You need ownership because workers wait. They wait for permission. They wait for instruction. They wait for direction before they move. Builders don't wait. They decide. That's the difference. That's the divide between survival and success. A worker says, "Tell me what to do." A builder says, "Here's what must be done." Ownership doesn't ask. It acts. Ownership doesn't obey. It leads. You have a choice. Keep following rules built by others, or build the rules that lead your own life. That's the key. Workers wait. Builders decide. Most people are programmed for obedience. It starts early. School trains you to raise your hand. Jobs train you to wait for approval. Society trains you to stay in line. Obedience becomes your default setting. You're rewarded for following instructions, not creating direction. You're praised for compliance, not initiative. And slowly, you forget how to think for yourself. You forget that you were once curious, once bold, once willing to fail your own way. That's the trap. The worker mindset is built on dependency. Dependency on managers, systems, validation. But dependency kills vision. Builders don't wait for orders. They issue them to themselves first. They don't ask, "What should I do?" They decide, "This is what must be done." That's ownership. And here's the truth. If you need permission to move, you'll never move fast enough to win. If you need validation to act, you'll always be late to the opportunity. If you need approval to build, you'll build someone else's dream, not your own. You weren't born to be managed. You were born to create. That's not rebellion. That's responsibility. Ownership is the new obedience. Let's redefine obedience. True obedience isn't about submission to authority. It's about loyalty to purpose. It's about discipline toward a vision that matters. Builders don't reject structure. They build it. But they build it around their goals, their values, their mission. That's the shift. Workers obey systems designed by others. Builders create systems that serve their vision. It's not rebellion. It's redirection. It's not chaos. It's control. When you take ownership, you stop outsourcing your destiny. You stop blaming bosses, markets, algorithms, or luck. You stop saying, they didn't give me the chance. You start saying, I'll build my own. That's ownership. That's the new obedience, because ownership is discipline disguised as freedom. And freedom is responsibility mastered through ownership. Listen. Every builder you admire started with nothing but ownership. No guarantees, no roadmap, no boss, just a decision. I'll hold myself accountable for my outcome. You don't need a boss. You need accountability to your own vision. That's what keeps you consistent when no one's watching. That's what pushes you when comfort whispers, you've done enough. That's what separates the average from the exceptional. Workers chase comfort. Builders chase clarity. Workers obey systems. Builders create standards. Ownership is the foundation of freedom. Because once you own your choices, no one else can control your direction. You stop being reactive. You start being responsible. And here's what most people miss. Responsibility is not punishment. It's power. It's the moment you stop waiting and start leading. That's when life bends to your design. Accountability builds empires. Every empire begins with one person saying, it's on me. Not, it's unfair. Not, they didn't help. Just, it's on me. That's accountability. You want to know what destroys progress? Blame, excuses, deflection. You can't build from those. They drain power. They destroy potential. Accountability fuels momentum. When you take ownership, you gain control. When you gain control, you gain direction. When you gain direction, you gain destiny. It's that simple. You want freedom? Take responsibility. You want power? Own the outcome. You want results? Hold yourself accountable. Not to pressure, but to potential. You don't need more supervision. You need more self-supervision. You don't need motivation. You need responsibility, because motivation fades. Ownership doesn't. Here's the mindset shift. Stop saying, I have to. Start saying, I choose to. That one phrase changes everything. I have to is a worker's phrase. I choose to is a builder's code. That's the language of ownership. When you say, I choose to, you reclaim power. You remind your brain that you are the architect, not the employee of your own life. You remind yourself that everything in your control is your responsibility. The truth is, no one's coming to save you. No one's going to hand you a manual, a map, or a guarantee. You have to create it. You have to own it. You have to build it. That's what ownership looks like. And once you live that way, everything changes. Excuses stop. Action starts. You become unstoppable. Not because you have all the answers, but because you own the outcomes. That's the difference between control and chaos. Between motion and mastery. Between waiting and winning. The uncomfortable truth of ownership. Ownership isn't easy. It's not glamorous. It means looking in the mirror when things fall apart and saying, that's on me. It means taking responsibility for your mindset, your habits, your results. It means no more blaming the market, your boss, your team, or your parents. It means no more outsourcing failure, because ownership doesn't need excuses. It needs execution. The moment you say, this is my fault, is the moment you regain your power. That's the paradox. The more responsibility you take, the more freedom you earn. Ownership demands humility. It demands maturity. It demands clarity. But here's the reward. Ownership also brings peace. Because once you take full responsibility, you stop fighting the world. You start building within it, and that's when you become untouchable. You stop being a piece on someone else's board. You start being the player who designs the game. You don't need anyone's permission to do that. You just need your decision. That's the mindset that turns employees into entrepreneurs, followers into leaders, workers into builders, ownership over obedience. That's the code. Transition. So from now on, stop asking for approval. Start demanding accountability. Stop waiting for the next instruction. Start writing your own blueprint, because you don't need a boss. You need vision. You need responsibility. You need ownership. That's how builders move. Not from permission, but from power. You've learned how to take control of your choices. Now it's time to take control of your value. You've built ownership in mindset. Now it's time to build ownership in money. Because the next level of freedom isn't mental. It's financial. Chapter 6. Create. Don't compete. You can't dominate what you imitate. Say that again. Slowly. You can't dominate what you imitate. That's the law of creation. That's the builder's code. Workers compete. Builders create. Workers fight for space inside someone else's system. Builders design a system of their own. Competition is for those who haven't found their voice. Creation is for those who build the stage, and that's where everything changes. When you stop fighting for your seat at the table and start building your own table. That's the key. Workers compete for promotions. Builders create new markets. Competition is survival. Creation is freedom. Workers live in comparison. They measure themselves against the next person in line. They obsess over titles, positions, salaries, and status. They chase promotions, not progress. But here's the truth. When you're competing, you're playing a game someone else designed. You're following their rules. You're chasing their prizes. You're climbing a ladder that was never yours to begin with. And the worst part? Even if you win, you lose. Because you've spent your life proving yourself inside someone else's structure. That's what the worker mindset does. It locks you in a cycle of proving instead of producing. Builders think differently. They look at competition and say, why play in their sandbox when I can build my own? They create new value instead of fighting for existing validation. They make new markets instead of fighting for old ones. Every major shift in history was built by someone who refused to compete. Steve Jobs didn't compete to make a better phone. He created a new experience. Elon Musk didn't compete for car sales. He redefined what a car is. Oprah didn't compete for airtime. She built a media empire around purpose. That's creation. That's vision. That's how builders move. Competition is about fitting in. Creation is about standing out. You have a choice. Keep fighting for a slice or start baking the pie. Because the pie isn't fixed. It's infinite. And the moment you realize that, you stop fighting and start building. You stop asking, how do I beat them? You start asking, how can I build something they can't ignore? That's the shift from worker to builder. Stop fighting over the same pie. Learn to bake your own. Most people live in scarcity mode. They believe there's not enough. Not enough money. Not enough customers. Not enough opportunity. So they fight. They undercut. They copy. But scarcity is a mindset, not a market condition. And when you think scarce, you create limits that don't exist. Builders don't think in scarcity. They think in creation. They understand that value can be invented, that opportunities can be manufactured, that wealth can be generated, not just redistributed. If everyone is fighting for the same pie, it's because no one stopped to ask, why not make another? That's the difference between the consumer mindset and the creator mindset. Consumers fight over crumbs. Creators bake the bakery. You don't need to be first. You need to be different. That's the secret most never learn. Because originality doesn't mean inventing from nothing. It means combining what already exists into something new. Something useful. Something powerful. That's how markets are made. That's how legacies are built. So stop mimicking. Stop chasing trends. Stop trying to do what everyone else is doing, just slightly better. Because slightly better never changes your life. Completely different does. That's the power of creation. You can't dominate what you imitate. If you sound like everyone else, act like everyone else, and sell what everyone else sells, you become invisible. And invisible builders never change the world. You have to create something that carries your fingerprint, your perspective, your style, your energy. That's how you escape the noise. Workers want recognition. Builders want resonance. Recognition fades. Resonance lasts. So instead of chasing attention, chase impact. Instead of competing for relevance, create for meaning. You'll never have to fight for a seat when you build your own arena. You can't dominate what you imitate. Read that again. You can't dominate what you imitate. You can't lead by following the footsteps of those ahead. You lead by taking steps no one's dared to take yet. That's what creation requires. Courage. The courage to think differently. The courage to be misunderstood. The courage to build when no one believes in what you're building. Because the truth is, creation is lonely at first. There's no applause in the early stages. There's no validation. There's no crowd. But that's where vision grows. In silence. In isolation. In the invisible phase where most people give up. Workers quit when the crowd doesn't clap. Builders keep going until the world can't ignore what they've built. That's discipline. That's conviction. That's the builder's mindset. You don't need their permission. You don't need their approval. You need your decision. Stop asking, is this good enough? Start asking, does this move the world forward? You want to dominate? Create something no one else can replicate. Not because it's complex, but because it's you. You're the competitive advantage. Your vision. Your process, your story. That's what competitors can't steal. That's what imitators can't copy. That's what makes you untouchable. When you create, you rise above comparison. You stop fighting for space because you own space. You stop proving your worth because your work speaks for itself. That's power. That's leverage. That's the builder's path. And here's the truth. The world doesn't need another competitor. It needs a creator bold enough to stop playing the same game and start writing new rules, so write your rules. Build your system. Launch your idea. You don't need to be louder. You need to be original. You don't need to be faster. You need to be different. You don't need to win against them. You need to win within you. Because once you build what's truly yours, competition becomes irrelevant. The creation code. So here's the creation code. The mindset that separates the imitators from the innovators. Stop reacting. Start initiating. Don't wait to see what works for others. Try what feels right for you. Test, adjust, create. Focus on impact, not applause. The market rewards value, not volume. Build something that matters, not just something that trends. Build something that outlives attention. Competition fades when your creation becomes culture. That's the game. That's the code. You have a choice, to compete for approval or to create for legacy. And legacy only comes to those who dare to build their own lane. Transition, so stop fighting for what's already been built. Start building what's never been seen. Stop imitating what's popular. Start creating what's powerful, because you can't dominate what you imitate. You can't lead from behind. And you can't build freedom while copying someone else's blueprint. You were born to create, not compete. To innovate, not imitate. To design, not obey. You've learned how to own your choices. You've learned how to think like a builder. Now it's time to build something that lasts, because creation isn't the end. It's the beginning of scale. And scale requires discipline, delegation, and leadership. You've created your idea. Now it's time to multiply it. Chapter 7. Your network is your infrastructure. Your next level is locked inside someone you haven't met yet. Let that sink in. Not inside a book. Not inside another online course. Not inside another long night of trying to do everything alone. Your next level is inside a person, because builders don't build alone. They build through people. They build with people. They build for people. That's the difference between a worker and a builder. Workers network for approval. Builders connect for growth. Workers try to impress. Builders try to align. Workers seek followers. Builders seek foundations. That's the key. Builders build relationships that build things. Every empire you admire is the product of partnership. Every movement you study is powered by connection. Every revolution in business, art, or thought began with a small circle of people who saw the same vision and decided to build it together. That's what real networks do. They multiply impact. A builder's network isn't about social climbing. It's about strategic alignment. It's not about collecting contacts. It's about collecting capability, because you don't need a crowd, you need a crew. You need the mentor who sharpens your mindset. You need the partner who executes the plan. You need the ally who believes when no one else does. You can't scale your vision without structure. And people are the structure. Your network is your infrastructure. It's what holds your empire up when life hits hard. It's what multiplies your ideas when your energy runs low. It's what keeps your mission alive when you start doubting yourself. That's not luck. That's architecture. The greatest builders don't just design systems, they design relationships. Because systems move things. People move worlds. Workers network for approval. Builders connect for growth. Let's talk about the difference. Most people network with one goal in mind: validation. They want to be seen. They want to be chosen. They want to be liked. They show up trying to prove their worth instead of offering their worth. They talk more than they listen. They chase people who are already running their own race, instead of building with those running in the same direction. That's not networking. That's begging for belonging. Builders move differently. They don't chase status. They chase synergy. They don't ask, "What can you do for me?" They ask, "What can we build together?" That's the shift. That's the mindset that creates exponential growth, because connection without purpose is chaos. But connection with purpose is power. You want to grow faster? Stop trying to impress people. Start trying to impact people. Offer value first, always. Bring clarity. Bring solutions. Bring energy. When you do that, your presence becomes magnetic. People remember the ones who solve problems, not the ones who seek attention. That's how builders attract partners, mentors, and investors. Not by shouting louder, but by showing proof through execution. You don't need more followers. You need more allies. You don't need more applause. You need more alignment. That's how you build your network into infrastructure. Because infrastructure doesn't need permission. It holds itself up. Every builder has a tribe. No one builds an empire alone. Even the visionaries you idolize had support structures. They had people who filled the gaps they couldn't fill. They had minds that challenged their blind spots. They had hands that carried what they couldn't lift. That's your tribe, mentors, partners, allies. Each plays a different role. Your mentor gives you wisdom. Your partner gives you execution. Your ally gives you belief. And together, they give you momentum. Because when you build alone, your vision grows wide, but not deep. When you build with others, your vision grows roots. And roots are what keep a builder standing when storms come. The world teaches independence like it's the highest virtue. But builders know interdependence is the real strength. It's not weakness to lean on others. It's wisdom. It's not dependency. It's strategy. You don't grow by guarding your ideas. You grow by expanding your capacity, and capacity expands through collaboration. Your next level is locked inside someone you haven't met yet. It might be a conversation away. It might be a collaboration away. It might be a single message you've been too proud or too afraid to send. Stop waiting for the right moment. Start reaching out, because the longer you isolate, the longer you delay your evolution. The network mindset. To build a real network, one that functions as infrastructure, not decoration, you need discipline. You need intentionality. Here's the code. Be valuable before visible. Don't chase visibility. Chase usefulness. People remember those who make things easier, faster, better. Protect your energy. Not everyone deserves access. Align with builders, not talkers. Collaboration without shared purpose is a liability. Give before you get. The fastest way to attract powerful people is to serve them, not flatter them. Offer results, not requests. Build long-term, not transactional. You're not collecting favors. You're constructing foundations. That's the builder's way. Your network isn't a list. It's a living system. It grows, strengthens, and compounds over time. Each new connection adds structure to your dream. Each collaboration adds stability to your growth. Each act of service adds credibility to your name. That's how empires rise, not by fighting alone, but by aligning with the right soldiers. Your next level is locked inside someone you haven't met yet. Say it again. Your next level is locked inside someone you haven't met yet. The mentor who'll change how you think. The partner who'll multiply what you do. The ally who'll open the door you couldn't find. But they won't appear while you hide behind pride. They won't appear while you pretend to have it all figured out. They'll appear when you move, when you show up, when you speak up, when you bring something real to the table. The world opens doors for those who are already walking. You don't find your network by waiting. You find it by building in public. Share your process. Share your progress. Share your purpose. That's how your people find you. Because builders attract builders. Winners attract winners. And when aligned vision meets aligned energy, momentum becomes inevitable. You have a choice. You can keep trying to do it alone, or you can build your infrastructure through people who make you stronger. You can keep chasing approval. Or you can build alliances that amplify your impact. You can keep competing, or you can start connecting. That's the difference between stagnation and scale. Transition, you've learned to create your own path. Now you've built the network to walk it with strength, because no empire rises without infrastructure. And your infrastructure is built from trust, loyalty, and alignment. You don't need everyone. You just need the right ones. You've learned to build relationships that build things. Now it's time to learn how to multiply what you've built. Not by working harder, but by leading smarter. Chapter 8. Risk is the rent. You pay for freedom. If you don't risk something, you already lost everything. That's not philosophy. That's reality. Because every dream, every vision, every ounce of freedom, it all comes with rent due. And that rent is risk. Workers avoid it. Builders embrace it. Workers seek guarantees. Builders seek growth. Workers rent their life to stability. Builders own their life through risk. That's the key. Workers rent. Builders own. Let's be clear. Risk isn't the enemy. Comfort is. Most people spend their lives avoiding discomfort. They want safety, predictability, routine. They want the same paycheck every 2 weeks, the same schedule, the same illusion of control. But safety has a cost. The cost is freedom. The cost is ownership. The cost is potential. Every safe choice you make becomes a quiet agreement to stay small. You might not sign that contract in ink, but you live it every day. You trade your potential for predictability. You think you're being smart by avoiding risk. But what you're really doing is renting your life, renting your time, renting your dreams, and your landlord is fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of loss. But here's the truth. The longer you play safe, the more expensive it becomes because time compounds and regret compounds faster. That's why builders choose ownership. Ownership means taking full responsibility for outcomes, good or bad. Ownership means betting on yourself even when no one else will. Ownership means paying risk as the rent to live life on your own terms. You can't skip the rent. You can't cheat the cost. You either pay it up front through courage, or you pay it later through regret. Risk is leverage. Let's redefine risk. Risk isn't danger. Risk is leverage. Every time you take a risk, you buy yourself a new level of control. You buy perspective. You buy opportunity. You buy freedom. Because risk is the only currency that trades for possibility. You can't buy freedom with time. You can't buy freedom with comfort. You can only buy it with courage. That's what separates workers from builders. Workers see risk as a cliff. Builders see it as a bridge. The worker says, "What if I fall?" The builder says, "What if I fly?" The worker avoids mistakes. The builder mines them for lessons. The worker fears the unknown. The builder builds in the unknown. If you want freedom, you have to pay rent in uncertainty. There's no other way, because risk doesn't destroy you. It develops you. It reveals what you're made of. It refines your focus. It teaches you what no book or seminar can. That's why builders are calm in chaos. They've paid rent before. They've learned that discomfort isn't death. It's data. They use it. They leverage it. They grow from it. The real danger isn't failure. It's staying average. You've been conditioned to fear failure. You've been taught to play small. Follow the rules, stay inside the lines. But look around. Everyone playing it safe looks the same routines, same excuses, same dreams on hold until it's the right time. And guess what? That right time never comes because safety is addictive. Comfort is the quiet killer of ambition. You can fail fast and recover, or succeed slowly and decay. That's your choice. The real danger isn't losing everything. It's never risking anything. Failure is temporary. Average is permanent. At least failure gives you feedback. Average gives you nothing. At least risk gives you direction. Comfort gives you confusion. You think you're protecting yourself by avoiding risk. But all you're doing is delaying growth. Builders understand that. They know every level of success requires a higher level of risk tolerance, not blind gambling. Calculated courage, because risk without thought is stupidity, but thought without risk is stagnation. That's the balance. That's the builder's edge. If you don't risk something, you already lost everything. You lost your time. You lost your curiosity. You lost your fire. And once that fire dies, your potential dies with it. The math of freedom. Let's make this simple. Freedom etched your ownership. Ownership or risk. No risk, no ownership. No ownership, no freedom. It's math. If your income depends on your presence, you're still a worker. If your peace depends on approval, you're still a follower. If your success depends on certainty, you're still in prison. The door to freedom is unlocked, but the handle is on your side. The cost to open it? Risk. It might be the risk of quitting a job, the risk of launching an idea, the risk of saying no to mediocrity. But every time you choose courage over comfort, the world gets bigger. Your capacity expands, your vision sharpens, your confidence compounds, and soon you'll look back and realize something powerful. The risks that once scared you are now your foundation. That's what builders do. They turn uncertainty into infrastructure. They turn fear into fuel. That's how you stop renting your potential and start owning your life. How to build a risk habit. Here's the truth most won't tell you. Risk is a muscle. And like any muscle, it grows through use. The more often you choose courage, the less fear controls you. The more you step into uncertainty, the more certain you become in yourself. So here's how builders train their risk tolerance. Start small, but start now. Risk doesn't mean recklessness. It means stepping slightly beyond your comfort zone, every day. Detach from outcomes. Don't obsess over winning or losing. Focus on learning. Every risk offers data. Reframe failure as feedback. Ask, what is this teaching me? Not why me. Builders don't drown in mistakes. They mine them for gold. Track your courage, not your comfort. At the end of each day, ask yourself, where did I choose courage today? Because courage compounds faster than cash, and risk, when done right, pays compound interest in freedom. You have a choice. You can live safe and small, or bold and free. You can rent your life to stability, or own your life through risk. You can keep avoiding the rent, or you can pay it now and live how most people never will. If you don't risk something, you already lost everything. You lost your potential. You lost your freedom. You lost your chance to build something that outlives you. You have a choice. You always have a choice. Choose ownership. Choose courage. Choose risk. Because risk is the rent you pay for freedom. Transition, you've learned the price of freedom. And now, you're willing to pay it. You've accepted risk not as a threat, but as a tool. That's the mindset of a builder. That's how you stop renting your time and start owning your destiny, but ownership doesn't stop with risk. Because once you've earned your freedom, you must sustain it. Through mastery, through focus, through discipline. You mastered risk. Now let's talk about the one resource even more powerful than money or time. Chapter 9. Build once, earn forever, work once. Get paid forever. That's the builder's code. That's the freedom formula. That's how wealth was always meant to be created. Through design, not through endless labor. Workers trade time for money. Builders trade systems for freedom. The difference is architecture. The difference is intention. The difference is this: a worker earns every day. A builder builds once and keeps earning. That's the key. The worker's loop. Let's start with the truth you already feel but maybe haven't said out loud. If you stop working, your income stops too. That's the trap. That's the loop. That's the invisible treadmill most people never get off. You wake up, you work, you earn. You sleep, then you do it again. You think you're moving forward, but really, you're moving in circles. That's not progress. That's prison. Because you've confused productivity with creation. You've confused effort with architecture. The worker's life is powered by repetition. The builder's life is powered by replication. One repeats the same task every day. The other designs something that repeats for them. And until you make that shift, from worker to builder, you will always be at the mercy of the clock. You'll always be in a race against time instead of leveraging it. That's the key. Leverage. Because wealth isn't about hard work. It's about smart structure. You can't outwork a system, but you can build one. Systems create. Freedom builders understand something most people never will. Time is the raw material, but systems are the factory. Every piece of real wealth, every empire, every movement, every fortune, started as a system. It's not magic. It's mechanics. A builder asks, how can I make this work without me? How can I multiply my time? How can I earn while I sleep? That's not arrogance. That's efficiency. Look at every successful creator, coder, or entrepreneur. They all learned how to turn their effort into infrastructure. The YouTuber who uploads one video that earns for years. The author who writes one book that sells while they rest. The app developer who builds one tool that scales to millions. That's leverage in action. That's work once, get paid forever made real. And you don't need to be a millionaire to do it. You just need to stop thinking like a worker and start thinking like an architect. Because systems outperform sweat. Always have. Always will. It's not about how many hours you put in. It's about how many outputs your hours create. That's why builders automate. They document. They delegate. They scale. They don't build to survive the day. They build to outlast the decade. You don't need more hours. You need better architecture. You need systems that breathe when you rest. The myth of passive income. Let's get something straight. Passive income isn't passive. It's front-loaded. It's the result of focused, intentional effort applied up front, so the system can run after you're done. Most people want the reward without the responsibility. They say they want passive income, but they live with passive effort. That's not how this works. Builders grind in silence to earn in perpetuity. They invest heavily in the beginning so they can detach later. You don't build freedom overnight. You build systems over time. A system might be a course that sells without your presence, a business that runs without your constant attention, a brand that operates on automation. That's what wealth really is. Time detached from income. It's not about laziness. It's about leverage. You're not escaping work. You're upgrading it. You're not quitting effort. You're reinvesting it into something that grows without you. That's the shift. That's the mindset of a builder. Work once. Get paid forever. Build the machine, not the task. You can't scale chaos. You can't multiply what depends on your presence. That's why builders don't just do the work and they build. The machine that does the work. Think of McDonald's. The founder didn't build a burger. He built a system that could make millions of burgers, identically, globally, without him being there. That's leverage. That's legacy. You don't need to franchise fast food to think like that. You just need to apply the principle. Stop asking, how do I do more? Start asking, how do I make this automatic? Document your process. Standardize it. Automate it. Then delegate it. That's how you escape the worker's loop. Because the true goal isn't to do everything yourself. It's to design a machine that doesn't need you to function. When you're the bottleneck, you're the barrier to your own growth. When you become the architect, you create infinite scalability. That's how builders move from stress to structure, from chaos to consistency, from exhaustion to expansion. You don't need more hours. You need a better engine. The psychology of building. Once this mindset demands discipline, because your ego will try to drag you back into busy work. You'll crave the illusion of progress, the dopamine of daily effort. But building systems feels slow before it feels smart. It feels empty before it feels efficient. That's the trap that kills most potential builders. They can't stand the patience it takes to create something that pays off later. They're addicted to immediate results. But you have to remember, every system looks like wasted time until it starts printing freedom. That's the discipline of builders. They delay gratification for multiplication. They don't need validation. They don't need applause. They need results. Results that compound when they're not even watching. You don't need their permission to build smarter. You don't need anyone's approval to step off the hamster wheel. You just need the courage to slow down long enough to construct something that outlives you. Point 6, real-world application. Here's how to start building once and earning forever. Practically, identify repeatable value. What do people consistently come to you for? Knowledge, tools, services, systems. That's your foundation. Document the process. Write down every step you take to deliver that value. That document is your first system blueprint. Automate or delegate. Use tools or people to execute what doesn't require your direct attention. Technology and talent are leverage multipliers. Create assets, not obligations. Build things that outlast you. Courses, content, software, communities, intellectual property. Detach emotion from systems. Systems aren't art, they're architecture. They don't need to be perfect. They just need to run. Do this long enough, and one day you'll wake up to realize your income didn't stop when you slept. That's not luck. That's leverage. Work once, get paid forever. You have a choice. You can keep trading hours for dollars, or you can trade intention for infinity. You can keep working in the business, Or you can work on the system. You can stay stuck in the loop, or you can step into the long game. You have a choice. You always have a choice, but understand this. No one is coming to build your freedom for you. No boss, no mentor, no miracle. Freedom isn't found. It's built, and it's built by those who dare to slow down, design systems, and say, I refuse to earn only when I'm awake. That's the mindset that changes everything. That's the shift from time trader to empire builder. Work once. Get paid forever. Transition. You've learned how to multiply your time. You've learned how to build systems that pay you long after you've done the work. That's leverage. That's freedom. But there's one final layer. One thing that amplifies every system, every risk, every connection you've built. Because at the core of every builder's empire is not money, not time, but energy. You built the machine. Now let's talk about the power that runs it. Chapter 10. Think legacy, not salary. You're not building a career. You're building a kingdom. That's the mindset shift most people never make. That's the separation line between workers and builders. Workers chase paychecks. Builders create permanence. Workers think in months. Builders think in generations. Because a worker's mindset is built on survival. How do I get through this month? A builder's mindset is built on legacy. How do I make something that lasts forever? That's the key. The trap of the monthly mindset. Most people are programmed to think in 30-day windows. Bills, rent, salaries, pay cycles, everything reinforces the short game. You earn, you spend, you repeat. You never build. You become addicted to the rhythm of survival. You mistake consistency for progress. But here's the truth. If your money stops when you stop working, you're still renting your life. If your impact ends when you do, you've only built activity, not legacy. You don't need another paycheck. You need a blueprint. A monthly mindset makes you reactive. A legacy mindset makes you strategic. When you think in months, you play defense. When you think in decades, you play offense. The worker says, I just need to make it through. The builder says, I'm laying bricks for a castle my grandchildren will walk through. That's the difference. That's the power of long thinking. The currency of permanence, the world rewards the builders who think beyond themselves. That's why the names that echo through time aren't the ones who worked the hardest. They're the ones who built systems, ideas and structures that outlived them. Walt Disney is gone, but Disney earns. Steve Jobs is gone, but Apple grows. Coco Chanel is gone, but her brand breathes. They built kingdoms, not careers. They understood something most never will. Effort fades, architecture endures. You're not here just to earn. You're here to establish. That's legacy thinking. That's how you turn work into immortality. And you don't need billions to think that way. You just need purpose. You just need discipline. You just need to stop thinking in weeks and start thinking in centuries. Because legacy isn't about money. It's about meaning. You can build an empire that pays your family, or you can build principles that guide generations. Either way, what you build should outlive your effort. That's the assignment. The death of the career mindset. Let's be honest. The word career is dying. A career was built for a time when people wanted security, but security now is a myth. The market shifts. Industries die. AI replaces entire job categories overnight. If you tie your identity to a career, you're building your house on sand. But if you build a kingdom, it doesn't matter how the wind blows, because a kingdom isn't tied to one title, one company, or one economy. A kingdom is built on assets, values, and systems that multiply themselves. You can lose a job and still keep your kingdom. You can lose income and still keep influence. That's real wealth. That's the kind of power no recession can erase. You don't need their permission to think bigger. You don't need a boss to validate your worth, because you were never meant to just have a career. You were meant to create continuity. So ask yourself, if you walked away today, what would still stand? If you disappeared tomorrow, what would still grow? That's your true net worth. That's your legacy balance sheet. Builders play the long game. Builders are patient because they're strategic. They understand that quick money creates comfort, but long money creates freedom. They don't chase applause. They chase impact. They're not counting followers. They're counting foundations. They're not obsessed with how much they make. They're obsessed with what will remain. It's not about status. It's about structure. It's not about today's numbers. It's about tomorrow's name. That's why builders delay gratification. They know every short-term distraction steals from long-term greatness. They invest instead of spend. They document instead of forget. They mentor instead of compete. Because legacy isn't built by people who hoard. It's built by people who pour. When you think legacy, you shift from what do I get to what do I give, from how fast can I grow to how deep can I root. That's where immortality begins. Turning work into legacy? You want to know the formula? Here it is, simple, brutal, and true. Create what compounds. Build systems, not moments. Businesses, not gigs. Assets, not trophies. Document everything. Don't just do it. Write it. Teach it. Systemize it. That's how ideas survive you. Transfer your wisdom. Pass down knowledge, not just money. Information compounds faster than capital. Build with purpose, not ego. A legacy driven by ego dies with applause. A legacy built on purpose outlives generations. Measure differently. Stop asking, how much did I make? Start asking, what will still matter when I'm gone? Because that's the real scoreboard. That's the measure of mastery. You're not building a career. You're building a kingdom. A kingdom of ideas. A kingdom of value. A kingdom of discipline. The shift from income to impact. The world teaches you to chase money, but money fades, impact multiplies, influence compounds, legacy transcends. A builder knows this. When your name becomes attached to contribution, the world pays you forever. You might start for profit, but you'll stay for purpose. Because purpose is what fuels the empire when motivation dies. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop chasing salary and start serving legacy, the money follows anyway. Why? Because the market always rewards meaning. People buy belief before they buy a product. They follow mission before they follow marketing. Legacy attracts loyalty. Salary buys obedience. You decide what kind of builder you want to be. You have a choice. Do you want to build something that pays your bills? Or something that changes your bloodline? That's the test. That's the truth. Plant trees. You'll never sit under legacy. Thinking means planting seeds for people you may never meet. It's doing the right thing now for the results that may come later. It's thinking beyond your lifespan. It's refusing to let your name die when your body does. The builder says, I may not see the fruit, but I'll plant the tree anyway. That's discipline. That's leadership. That's how civilizations are built. Your job is to create something that speaks when you no longer can. Your words, your systems, your example, your values. That's the inheritance that matters. You can leave behind a bank account or a blueprint. One fades. The other multiplies. You're not just building for today. You're building for them, the ones who come after you. You're not building a career. You're building a kingdom. You have a choice. You can keep thinking in months, or you can start thinking in generations. You can keep chasing paychecks, or you can start constructing permanence. You can keep earning to survive, or you can build to outlive. You have a choice, and when you choose legacy over salary, everything changes. Your standards rise. Your timeline extends. Your actions start echoing beyond your lifetime. That's what true wealth looks like. Work that keeps working when you're gone. You don't need their permission to start thinking like that. You just need the courage to believe your name deserves to last because it does. You're not building a career. You're building a kingdom, and kingdoms aren't built in months. They're built in mindsets. Transition, you've learned how to think like a builder. You've learned that money follows meaning and structure outlives effort. That's legacy. That's leadership. But every kingdom needs one final thing, the foundation that keeps it from collapsing. And that foundation isn't money. It's not systems. It's you. Because if you collapse, everything collapses. You built the structure. Now it's time to protect the source. 1 minute closing script. The challenge. You were never meant to live life on a leash. Every paycheck that comes from your time is proof that you're still playing small. Builders don't ask, "What can I earn?" They ask, "What can I build that earns without me?" Stop waiting for the next raise. Build the thing that pays raises. Stop clocking in and start cashing out. The future doesn't belong to the employed. It belongs to the empowered. From this day forward, every action, every thought, every move must come from the builder's mindset. You don't need permission. You need progress. The system you build will either enslave you or set you free. Now go and build something that outlives you.